Hello, everyone. Good morning. Early morning if you're on the West Coast, like some of my coworkers, and regular morning if you're on the East Coast, like me. Welcome to Getting Personal with Compt. I'm Lauren Schneider. I'm the head of communications here. And this is a show that we've been running all year where I get to talk to very, very cool people about the workplace and not just what work environments look like, but how to turn those into something that is more personalized and how to make a more human experience at work. Because I think too often we forget that employees are people too. So today with me, I have Peter Rahbar. He is an employment attorney, a workplace issues expert, and founder of the Rahbar Group. Peter, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Lauren. I'm especially honored that you described me as a very cool person. As a lawyer, you don't hear that a lot. So hopefully I can live up to the standard.
You know, it's funny because a friend of mine recently he said to me, I only know cool people. And that I felt very
Oh,
honored
wow.
by that. So I feel like that's what this show is. I only talk to cool people. I think cool in this sense is people who really care about like making the workplace a better place. And I think what we're going to talk about today is particularly interesting because I had just mentioned to you in our pre-live show that this is something that I think inherently makes a lot of sense, but it's not in my line of work among all of the headlines that I'm constantly reading or the conversations that I'm having in various HR groups. So tell me a little bit about hospitality consultants versus employment consultants, because I think there is something particularly interesting here.
Sure. And yeah, those green room discussions could get interesting before the show. But the basic concept is we're seeing a convergence of a number of trends right now in the workplace. And depending on the issue, you can pick the trends that are converging because it's like a real storm. But one of the ones that you've definitely read about many times, probably every day, and you probably can't believe you're still reading about it, is how employers are struggling to get their workers back into the office. And when I'm out with executives, and I represent a lot of executives, and when I talk to them, this is their number one frustration still, years or in some case months, but in other cases years as we've emerged from the pandemic or the crisis portion of the pandemic. So, there's a lot of headlines you read about policies, but you don't read a lot about how the policies aren't working. And then, so then what are employers doing? And the most creative employers are really thinking hard about, what purpose does the office serve now after the pandemic? What is the purpose of the office? And what do employees, more importantly, what do employees see as the purpose of the office? And how do I think about the employee in this context? Do I think about them as someone who I'm just forcing to come to this space because, well, that's not working? Or should I think of them more about them as like a client or a customer who I'm trying to satisfy, who I'm trying to give reasons to return and visit me? And so when you think about it that way, that's how you end up looking at and talking to, which many companies are, hospitality consultants, because that's their business, right? It's how to create experiences. And when you get down to it, that's what employees are looking for. They're looking for experiences. Why should I come to the office when I could do the same work at home and get it done and get good results? I've done that for a couple of years now. It seems to work. But you want me to come into the office? Fine. What am I going to get? What's the experience for me? Why is it better or more useful for me to be in the office than being at home? And that's the question that employers have to answer. And hospitality consultants, they don't come at it from an employee angle. They come at it from a customer, client angle, an experience angle. And that's why their value in workplace settings is increasing.
That's so interesting because we so often speak about how employees are your most valuable asset. And we talk a lot about the employee experience, but I don't think we look at it from a lens as imagine you are a hotel and you have guests that you want to please and you want to create the best experience for them possible and not necessarily cater to all of their wants and needs because that's not necessarily realistic, but create a memorable, lasting impression.
Right.
And I think that we forget that somewhere in the workplace.
Oh,
And
yeah.
maybe that's because the landscape is constantly changing. I mean, you just talked about how everyone's pushing this return to office. So, how do we, in that sense, maybe prioritize this hospitality focused approach or culture to engage people?
Sure. I mean, when employers think about offices, they think about how do we design offices to get the job done? Some employers say, how do we design them to maximize utilization of our space? I've sat with a lot of executives who make these decisions based on, price per square foot or, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what's happening now in the American workplace where, less American workers are coming to the office than, percentages in other countries. American workers are feeling a lot of power and independence and choice, frankly. And so this is forcing employers to say, well, what can bring them here and what can keep them here, right? And if you think about it, when you go to a hotel, and I'm not talking about like a low-end hotel or a airport hotel or something like that. I'm talking about the
Right.
luxury hotels, okay? The
Mm-hmm.
really nice hotels where you're going to spend money, you're going to pay for an upgrade. You really want an experience that's worth the money. Like, think about going to one of those places versus going to the office and how they differ, right? So you check into the hotel, you walk into the hotel, there's someone at the door, there's someone grabbing your luggage, there's offering to grab your luggage, park your car, open the door, you get to a check-in desk, they know your name, they know your reservation, they try and have a very pleasant conversation with you. Maybe you go to the room, maybe there's a tray of welcome goodies there. Maybe a concierge is reaching out to you, but certainly is available to you. You have room service, you have all these wonderful amenities. And then compare it to coming to an office where in most cases no one's parking your car, no one's opening the door for you, no one's greeting you. You get to your desk, you sit down, you do your work, you get up, maybe there's some nice snacks and things like that. Maybe your colleagues pop in, maybe they don't. Maybe you brought your own lunch in a fridge packed with other people's lunches. You go to the bathroom, there's nothing nice about it. There's no towels or flowers. It's a very staid, like corporate office with metal doors and, bad toilet paper and whatnot, and and so those things weigh on people. I mean, we've spent years where like people spend record amounts of money on traveling because they want experiences. People sat home or in fear of, getting COVID or watching their friends and family members, be affected by it. In some cases, losing friends and family members from it. And so people were craving experiences. The moment they could, and if they had the means, they would bust out and go and travel and see the world. And American tourists, were all over the world, more so than other countries even. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's what people like. That's what people want. When they think about return to work, they're like, well, I could do it here versus there, and what's the experience there? Oh, nothing, and that's not what you want your employee to say. So if you're a manager, if you're a business owner and you're not thinking about those things, I think you're really missing the boat on the issue entirely. It's not just about, childcare and commuting and all the costs, although those are parts of it too. it is part of like what happens when I'm in the office. Is it worse? In some cases, worse than when I'm at home? Is it better? So those are the questions you have to answer for your employees. And as you said, if your employees are your most valuable asset, then you got to figure out a way to incorporate their interests into the equation.
Something that you said, this is so silly what resonated with me out of that. I was thinking about the warm cookie that you get at like a DoubleTree
Yeah,
when you walk in.
Those are good.
Right, those are good cookies. But the funny thing is, like, similarly, you see a lot of articles about the return to office and what perks can we offer people, and is free lunch going to be enough? And I don't even. It's not about the food. It's not about the offering me the warm cookie. It's about the feeling that it evokes, and I 100%. Think that's the piece that is missing, because the free lunch isn't going to really brighten my day if I'm sitting in the darkest cubicle of the office away from all the windows. That's just going to drain me day in and day out forever. So there are so many pieces that I guess play into creating a more valuable experience for employees, especially when you might have gotten used to the luxuries of sitting at home and wearing a very nice shirt, but wearing sweatpants currently.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, these are real concerns. And look, we've all had plenty of free cookies in our life. I have too, but the ones, like you say, the ones I remember came in special settings, or they were exceptionally delicious, or, they were prepared in a way. Like, I'll give you an example. Like there's a ski resort in Colorado, Beaver Creek, where, you come down the mountain, and after 3:00, they have a number of chefs walking around with trays of free cookies, and trust me, my kids remembered that back in the day. We went back there because of that. Those are things you remember. I mean, there are things that happen in hotels and resorts and leisure settings that you remember, and you want to remember their good associations. Most of the time in offices, that's not the case, but that can happen. That certainly can happen. And the problem is there's a mismatch right now between what employees are expecting and what employees want. And you really need an enlightened manager or an employer to see that and acknowledge it and do something about it. And unfortunately, you still have a lot of employers who are in the mindset of, I know what's best. I know what's best for this company. I know what's best for the employees, and I'm going to make all the decisions. And they're just not thinking about these things. So I think if you're going to approach this successfully, the first thing you're going to do is figure out who are the right people to surround yourself with in making these decisions. And here we are today, talking about, well, maybe someone with a hospitality background is going to have a different approach than someone with a HR background or a benefits background. And I know those are a lot of your clients, so I'm not saying anything bad about them. I'm just saying that, their approach is different and is not what is needed right now. They're thinking about cost. They're thinking about space. They're thinking about restrictions that they really shouldn't be thinking about in this setting. Someone new with a hospitality background is thinking, how can I deliver an experience that exceeds expectations? The costs and stuff we could figure out later, Yeah. And so you can have a discussion about that. And then I think you need to get your employees involved and, preview some ideas, get some of their ideas, see what's important to them. I mean, I'm sure that would be part of any consultant's process anyway, but it's really important. When I talked to one executive who said, I can't believe how few employees are coming in. We just redid our offices and no one seems to care. And, I said, well, were there employees involved in redesigning the offices? And he said, no, we don't even make these decisions based in New York. Company headquarters, which is in another city, made these decisions. So, that just highlights a little bit of the problem. You know, I mean, someone in Chicago or LA, they have a very different experience than someone in New York,
Right.
you know, frankly. And so location specific, employee specific. I mean, you may have offices where you have one type of employee in that office, you know, so you have to make really specific decisions to that location, to those employees, and to their, you know, needs and expectations.
All of that said, then, what does a success story look like? Like, what is the best outcome that you can hope for? Like, what is the impact there?
Well, the success story is, you know, demonstrating to, I mean, I'll go bigger picture on you a little bit here, as I have a tendency to do. The success story is that any decision an employer makes, whether it's about the office design or the policy or anything, technology, any of those decisions are opportunities to show your employees that you're listening to them and that they can trust you. Okay, that you have a voice with them. And that is so important to employees right now. So maybe they don't love the end product of what you decided on your office. Like maybe you had this whole process and the employer decided, you know what, having a concierge float around asking people if they need dinner reservations or dry cleaning or whatever is not the best way to spend my money. Or maybe having a chef come around at 4 o'clock with cookies is not something I'm interested in. But the process, if you engaged in the process and you were open to new ideas and you thought about them, I mean, that's really going to resonate with employees. And that would be your greatest success, I would argue, is the employees understanding, hey, this is an employer who cares. This is an employer who listens. This is an employer who gave me an opportunity to participate in the process. And that's important to me. I don't love what they did with the office, but you know what? I trust them. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to come in, you know, and I'm going to give it my best effort. So, you know, on a big picture level, I think that's the success story. On a, you know, micro level, on this topic we're talking about, obviously employers are doing these things because they want employees to come in. And when they come in, they want them to be engaged. And I think that's part of the equation too. You don't just want an employee to come in and sit at their desk and not interact with anybody. You're looking to rebuild culture and rebuild engagement. And that helps you in a lot of different areas. And an office has always been a vehicle for that. So if you do it well, the employees are going to say, wow, you know, this is better than I expected it to be. And I feel comfortable coming here and I'm willing to, you know, make some sacrifices because it's really good. I mean, it's really nice to walk into the office and have a tray of orange juice on the desk sitting next to the receptionist who is saying hello to me. You know, hopefully there is a change you can make that will resonate and stick with an employee and be the reason why they come in. And that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, totally agree with you. I want to ask, in our last couple of minutes together, because there are so many, I think, practical things that people can take away from this conversation, but what are some pitfalls that they should be aware of? Because I don't want them to hear warm cookies and that's the road that they go down. You know what I mean? Like what should they be cautious of or aware of so that if they're implementing some practicality to this within their culture or trying to transform their culture maybe entirely, I guess the bottom line here is help. What should this look like?
Well, look, a lot of employers need to acknowledge that they need help, and they're not often willing to acknowledge that. So I think you make a good point. Like, it's not enough to put out the tray of cookies or have someone pass them around, which is what I would prefer. I think you're missing the whole opportunity if that's all you do. I think if you do that without communicating why you did it or how you got to that point, and what else you might be doing down the road, then an employee is just going to look at it as like some sort of lame attempt to buy their participation, right? Like, if you just put out the cookies without explaining why they're there, they may think like, oh, my boss just thinks I'm going to come in for cookies, or maybe, by the way, they may, there's also opportunities for healthier snacks. It doesn't have to be cookies, right? So the pitfall is not communicating, and so you could go through a whole process and then come to a set of decisions. And if there's no context provided and no explanation, that's going to leave a gap that employees are going to fill with their own answers. And so, it's important to communicate. And I say this on a lot of different topics to employers, like communicate, over communicate.
Yes.
You're in the communications business, so I'm sure you say the same thing, all the time. Explain your decisions, explain how you got there, explain who contributed, thank them, provide ongoing, opportunity to give suggestions and feedback. Don't assume that whatever choice you came to is perfect, and if it doesn't work, then you start getting angry at everyone and firing your hospitality consultant. It's an ongoing, it's an ongoing process, and more than anything, like right now, there's just constant change. So even something that may even resonate with employees this month is not going to necessarily resonate with them 5 months down the line. So really create a mechanism to accommodate and understand and implement further change down the road would be important. And if you don't do it, then I think it's a wasted opportunity.
Right. And that's not to say it's an uphill battle. It's just something that needs to be continuously nurtured if you want to create the best experience for your people.
Oh, it is an uphill battle. I'm not gonna keeping your employees happy should be a top priority, and it is difficult. There's nothing easy about it. It is very difficult. And employees have more information than ever, and they're feeling more empowered than ever. So it's very difficult for managers to grapple with that. I mean, it just is. So I'm not saying this is easy and it's a one-step fix of all those issues. Definitely not.
So Peter, thank you so much for your time today. If people want to reach out to you, if something from this conversation resonated with them, or they'd like your advice, or they need your help on that uphill battle, where can they find you?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to help design the workplace, so don't reach out to me for that. But there's a couple different ways you could find me. I have a website, the rahbargroup.com. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you can find all my content and thoughts there. And the firm also has an Instagram page, so you can reach out and see some stuff there. But yeah, I'd love to talk to anybody about these issues and other, issues surrounding their employees. That's what I do.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time today. Thank you everyone for watching.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And if you would like to be a guest on Getting Personal with Compt, send me an email, lauren@compt.io. Thanks everyone. Happy Wednesday.